Israel's military widens its ground offensive in Gaza. Scores of casualties have been reported in the north and south of the territory after relentless bombardments.
France remains on its highest national security alert as authorities say they're treating this weekend's deadly knife attack in Paris as a terror plot.
The devastating impact of climate change on health in focus at COP28 for the first time since the meetings got underway.
Anger on the streets of Spain as Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's amnesty deal with Catalan separatists faces continued opposition from right-wing voters. Indiscriminate artillery shelling in Gaza as Israel's ground offensive expands to every part of the Palestinian enclave. Israel's military says it has ordered more evacuations in the crowded south, while vowing that its operations against the Hamas militant group will be no less devastating than those in the north. Palestinian health authorities say hundreds of people have died since Israel resumed its assault on Friday. Gazans say they are running out of places to go in the sealed-off territory. Many of Gaza's 2.3 million residents relocated south after Israel issued orders to leave the north in the early days of the war. The United Nations has warned that hospitals in Gaza are overwhelmed, while shelters are seeing a significant increase in infectious diseases. Israel is under pressure from the international community to protect civilians. Its military says its fighter jets and helicopters struck Hamas targets, including tunnel shaft command centres and weapons storage facilities. It claims to have killed the commander of the Hamas Shati battalion in an airstrike on Sunday.
Floral tributes have been placed in the scene of the deadly knife and hammer attack that took place on Saturday night near Paris's Eiffel Tower. French authorities are treating the incident as a terror plot. The suspect, who it's now been revealed had previously been convicted of planning an attack, had pledged allegiance to the so-called Islamic State in a pre-recorded video.
L'information judiciaire qui avait été alors ouverte à son encontre avait permis de démontrer qu'il était issu d'une famille sans aucun engagement religieux et qu'il s'était converti à l'islam à l'âge de 18 ans en 2015 et qu'il avait très rapidement versé dans l'idéologie djihadiste.
French ministers held an extraordinary meeting with Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne on Sunday. A German man died and two others, a British man and a French national, were injured in the attack. Writing on X, French President Emmanuel Macron, who's at the COP28 summit in Dubai, sent his thoughts to all those affected by what he called the terrorist attack. Police are maintaining high visibility in the capital. The attack comes less than 2 months after a teacher was killed in a knife attack at a high school in the northern city of Arras, prompting the French government to put the country on its highest level of national security alert.
Under a brown haze over Dubai, participants at the COP28 summit turned their attention to the effects a heated planet is having on human health. Visitors to the gathering were able to walk through pollution pods, a set of 3 interconnected domes designed to simulate the air quality in 3 global cities. At least 7 million people die globally from air pollution each year, and the spread of disease, including cholera and malaria, as global warming wreaks havoc on weather systems, is a major concern.
So we have London, New Delhi and Beijing. And when you go in, you smell the level of pollution in those cities and you experience the level of visibility or lack of visibility that you might experience when you go there.
This is not looking good, everybody.
Although the climate crisis is also a health crisis, there's not been a serious discussion about the issue at any of the previous summits.
Not everyone's health is affected the same way. Some people are more vulnerable. This is why we're here. We're not in a hospital, because being here and advocating for a patient, it's not just air pollution, it's heat waves, it's the rise of infectious disease.
While world leaders meet in Dubai for the climate summit, there have been rallies and protests in several major cities across Europe demanding urgent climate change action. In Brussels, thousands supported a demonstration organised by the Belgian Climate Coalition in a bid to integrate climate issues into the Belgian presidency of the European Union, which begins in a few weeks' time. The United Nations Climate Summit, taking place in the United Arab Emirates, has a very clear objective: to put the planet back on track with the goals set 8 years ago by the Paris Agreement.
They're calling this the COP of action, where we need to get down to the dirty business of cleaning up our addiction to fossil fuels. And we have seen a move in that direction with this new goal of tripling renewable capacity by 2030, which expert analysts tell me will make a big difference. But what about sectors that you hardly ever hear about? Cement production. That represents 8% of greenhouse gas emissions. At the moment, you can't make cement without producing CO2. But I met a Swedish company who say they have found the solution.
And we've been able to do this by, first of all, replacing virgin limestone as the main ingredient. Virgin limestone being responsible for about 60% of the CO2 emissions in cement production. The remaining 40% is being eliminated by our unique chemistry, allowing us to have a much more energy efficient process where we electrify the production. Thus, going from 850 kilos of CO2 emissions per ton to close to zero.
Well, that cement can be used in new buildings once they can manage to ramp up production. But what about the old buildings that many of us live in and work in Europe? Can they be turned into carbon neutral buildings? Well, according to a Belgian expert I spoke to earlier, yes, they can.
It will depend on the context, of course, and you see that it's very easy to build a positive energy building right now. So the technology is there, but it's about renovating the existing built environment. And there I do see possibilities on the short run to look for this large-scale electrification, integration of renewables, but also increasing energy efficiency.
The possibilities are here in Dubai. Cutting polluting emissions is possible.
So that renewables pledge is giving some momentum to the hope that we can innovate and renovate our way into reducing our emissions, finally, by 2030. Jeremy Wilkes at COP28 for Euronews.
Ukrainian authorities say at least 2 people were killed and 4 others injured in Russian shelling in the Kherson area on Sunday. This comes as Kyiv announced its air defenses downed 10 Russian drones on the same day. In the west of the country, close to 1,000 towns and villages are said to have suffered power outages as the region is battered by wintry weather. As the defensive battle against Russia enters its second winter, families of soldiers have been rallying their support. Some called for the return of captive troops, while others questioned how much longer the exhausted soldiers could endure the daily battle. Many of the relatives are calling for fixed terms at the front and abolishing open-ended military service. Meanwhile, the Russian Ministry of Defense has released more footage of its troops on the front lines. Kyiv is investigating allegations that Russian forces shot surrendering Ukrainian soldiers. A video is circulating of the incident. The killing of prisoners of war is considered a violation of the Geneva Conventions and is classified as a serious international war crime.
Matteo Salvini, who's Italy's Deputy Prime Minister, hosted a rally in Florence on Sunday for Europe's far-right leaders. They came from Bulgaria, Belgium, Austria, Czech Republic and the Netherlands, where the far-right won the most seats in the recent parliamentary elections.
Oggi presentiamo agli italiani e a tutti gli europei un'idea di Europa diversa, l'Europa dei diritti contro l'Europa dei tagli.
Marine Le Pen, the former president of France's National Rally Group, opened the convention, saying, "We are movements of democratic and patriotic resistance in the face of a bureaucratic dominant structure." Dutch far-right leader Geert Wilders, who leads the Freedom Party in the Netherlands, also sent a video message saying, "We must guarantee that decisions that concern our nations are made by people who know it and love it best." Nearby, there was a small group of demonstrators who waved EU flags to denounce the far right in Europe.
A sea of Spanish flags on the streets of Madrid on Sunday as thousands of people stepped out to protest the government's planned amnesty deal with Catalan separatists. Hundreds of independent supporters were facing prosecution, prison terms and other penalties for backing the region's bid to break away from Spain. It marked the third such rally organised by the Conservative People's Party since the end of September. Speaking at the demonstration, its leader Alberto Núñez Feijóo slammed Socialist Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's initiative that secured him a new term.
Hundreds of people demonstrated in Paris on Sunday to oppose the French government's immigration bill. It's aimed at strengthening and speeding up the process of deporting foreigners who are regarded as a serious threat to public order. However, advocacy organizations say it threatens the rights of asylum seekers and other migrants. The rally also marked the 40th anniversary of the 1983 March for Equality, the first national demonstration to call for equal rights for French citizens of immigrant backgrounds and an end to racism. Indonesian first responders discovered the remains of 11 hikers on Monday, one day after the Mount Merapi volcano erupted. A group of hikers began their trek up the nearly 2,900-meter-tall mountain on Saturday and became stranded. 8 people were rescued the following day and were rushed to hospital with burns, but 12 remain unaccounted for. Merapi spewed thick columns of ash as high as 3,000 meters during Sunday's eruption, and hot ash clouds spread across several kilometers. Nearby villages and towns were blanketed by tons of volcanic debris. According to experts, the sudden volcanic activity was not preceded by a significant increase in earthquakes.